Right, okay, this video is intended to be History 3. That's how I intend it to be. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, I've been thinking quite a lot about it, where we sort of left off last time, and Long Road and stuff, and sort of the whole process of making that demo really. And again, trying to get my thoughts necessarily totally in order. But I mentioned Will Jackson and Soundworks last time, which was, in one of them anyway, which is where we recorded the Fierce Panda stuff. And what was on it? It was Long Road and it was Walls Get Smaller, wasn't it? I think they're what we recorded with Will. So now again, what this is leading into is talking about when we first got, our very own practice room, essentially, our very own rehearsal space, which came before the record deal. I'm pretty sure it did. I mean, where the coalition sort of sorted that out and then claimed it back, when we got signed. I don't know, but either way, for the purposes of how I'm telling it here, it doesn't really matter. The point is, during that 2-year process, during that, we got this rehearsal space. But I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember now if we got the rehearsal space first, because essentially, right, the rehearsal space was a spare room in Will Jackson's studio in Soundworks. And that's where we recorded it. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we were down there, saw that, knew we had a spare room, were looking for somewhere long term to set up, and he offered it to us. I think that's how it happened, but again, regardless, the sort of what I wanted to talk about here was, when we got our first practice room together, that was actually ours, that we could leave all our equipment set up in. So, it's not like we were having to drive, our parents rather, were having to drive us to pubs and load stuff in, load stuff out, and, play for however long we had. So let me just talk about that. So, Soundworks was in the basement of a building on Kirkshill Road, basically, in Leeds. Quite a lot of other businesses in there, but Will had his studio in the basement, and it's quite a big building, so as you can imagine, it was quite a massive, it's quite a big basement with lots of different rooms in it. Obviously, Will had his actual proper studio, and then all his recording booths and vocal booths and things like that, and quite a big live room as well. And then there was a big storage area at the back, and then I think that's right. I'm pretty sure when we first originally went there to record the stuff, Will was actually in the process of having another room, another structure built down there in the storage area. So he'd actually lose storage, but he'd gain an extra room. And I'm pretty sure now that that's what eventually became our rehearsal space. So, again, talking about all the exciting things that happened and all the crucial things that happened that, led us to where we got to, that was very crucial. Because I do remember now, it was something we were working on for a while back, looking for a space that we could, that was, obviously it had to be local, relatively local, easy to get to, secure enough that we could leave all the equipment, because places like Sponge and that, I'm sure at Sponge, I'm sure they went in through the roof, through like a steel roof, and took loads of people's stuff, because you could leave your stuff at Sponge in a lockup. But anyway, not my business, I suppose that. But yeah, that was obviously a factor for us. We wanted all our gear to be safe. So that started a very exciting chapter for us. Did having our own rehearsal space. It was, again, talking about magical things and things that fall into place to really allow you to start moving. That's what that really did, because as I said, all the irritating things of setting gear up and stuff, that essentially went, and we could literally just be creative. So it was very exciting for us, and again, we were excitable kids at that point. And this can and will branch off into all sorts of other topics, really. because there's, you know, obviously there's a lot of aspects that make up the entire story. Really, it's not just one straight narrative. Do you know what I mean? There's all sorts of different things that play a part. But obviously, again, when we got that practice room, we were kids. Do you know, as we were when the first album came out, we were kids. So it was somewhere we could, you know, it was bass. That's what it was. It was bass. So at a time when obviously we were all still living at home with our parents, it was somewhere we could go whenever we wanted. 24 hours a day we could go there and we could create. Excuse me. But not only could we go and create, we could go and, you know, I mean, you know, if we say, I wonder what percentage of our time in sound work was spent making music and what was spent just having a laugh, because that, I mean, we did. I mean, don't get me wrong, and again, I'll talk about this in depth later on, but us four had very interesting relationships when we were younger. And often troubled as well, you know. We'll beat around the bush, you know how honest I am. You know, each of our, again, I'm not going to get into it too much here, but each of our dynamics in terms of our personalities had aspects that rubbed each other up the wrong way. It did, and you do get that in groups of friends anyway. Everyone knows that, or in groups of people. It's always going to be slight personality clashes. It can be a good thing, providing it's channeled. You know, every great band. How many explosive relationships do you have in every great band? You know, often more than one. You know, a lot more than one. You know, look at Fleetwood Mac and Oasis. You know, any. I almost promise you that at the heart of any truly successful, and I'm not saying we were truly successful, but you know, well, any successful band, there will be some sort of clash or competition at the heart of it that drives such a creative fury. Now, case in point, look at Fleetwood Mac. You know, their debut album and the majority of their albums, what do you think any and all of it is about? It's all about the same thing. All of it. It's about the complete, I can't think of the word really right now. Again, I do try and watch my language in these videos. But it's about their relationships. You know, not just Stevie and Lindsay, but well, I don't know how much anyone knows about Fleetwood Mac, but there were points where they were all in each other's beds. Do you know what I mean? It was the 70s, I don't know. But you know what I'm trying to say anyway, like everyone in that band has got history with another. It's just so intertwined, is that band. But that's what makes, they all pull from such a rich vein of creativity, because that's what any sort of angst does. Any sort of angst or love or any true emotion, it drives furious creativity. You know, as does being, you know, pushed down. You know, like that can drive a great reaction in music as well, or in any art. I mean, how much art is a reaction to political movements, or even in a broader sense than that? How much art is reflective of society and the changes that society goes through? The byproduct of that, I mean, byproduct's often a negative context word because you think of a waste product. I'm not talking about that. The byproduct of that is creativity. Do you know what I mean? Like everything that went on in the 80s and well, all over the world, art and music will be being driven by emotional angst, political angst, cultural angst. You know, it's just where it comes from, isn't it? And I've gone way off here, but I think it's relevant. You know, I think it's relevant. I was getting onto the point about how, ultimately the point was there's nothing wrong with having a clash of personalities in a band. There we go. So I brought that point back around. That's probably the first time I managed to do that. And again, you know, when I talk about personality clashes, I'm not talking about all out wars. You know, we didn't have that. We never had all out wars. We just had different personalities to, you know, find our way around each other. But I suppose the point I'm ultimately driving at here, excuse me, I suppose the point I'm ultimately driving at, as it just flown out of my head as I found it. No, I am. The point I'm ultimately driving at, the third time of saying that, is that it didn't affect how we created. That's why it didn't, you know. And again, that goes into the other bands who've got confrontations or whatever. As long as it doesn't affect how they create, that's when it comes out good. If you can channel it, if the right people around you can sort of see what's going on and be like, all right, well, we don't want this to be combustible, but at the same time, you know, it's gonna churn stuff out that's good, because people want to hear that, don't they? People want to hear the gossip of someone's inner thoughts in a song. I think people like hearing that. I like hearing that. I do. Right. So yeah, our first rehearsal space, equipment set up there all the time. That was a really crucial point for us, because it drove us forward. And I don't know whether now would be a good time to introduce. Right. Obviously, I don't really like going into great detail about this on camera, but it does play such a crucial part in our history. And I'm going to use a code name for it. And the code name I'm going to use for it is Parsley. There we go, Parsley, right. So, we as a band had, you know, how can you put that? An insatiable desire for parsley. Or was that just me? Maybe I drove that. Anyway, we all liked a bit of parsley. I'm calling it that. I mean, anyone who's too innocent to know what I'm talking about, well, I guess I envy you, really. So, our first practice room, getting our first proper practice room, it coincided with the real birth of our love of parsley. And like I said, especially probably mine. Which, don't know, I mean, looking back on it, I mean, I'm not one of those people to think too much about, I shouldn't really done that, and if. It was just a natural progression for us. And again, I really hope that I'm not making anyone uncomfortable by talking about this stuff, i.e. the rest of the lads. Again, I don't like, and I'm never going to reveal stuff in this context that is that I feel will be massively personal to them. You know, I'd never do that. But at the same time, no one can deny we had the love of parsley. Do you know what I mean? So, as you can imagine, do you know what I mean? 4 18-year-old lads in their own studio. So how long is it? Sorry. In their own studio, we can come and go, do whatever we want, and Will, the studio owner, he loves parsley as well. He's not averse to parsley, so we went a bit mad in that sense. And as much as I'm laughing, I suppose we had to balance it, because it was. No one can judge us for it, though, can't? I mean, who's going to sit other end of this and think, oh, well, that's disgusting. That's disgusting, that. If I was 18 and I'd been given all that money and I don't have to get up early, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, right. You'd all be, you know where you'd be. None of you would be alive. Do you know what I mean? It's a bloody good job we are. You know the point I'm making, though. It's not big, it's not clever or whatever, but what I'm talking about here in these videos and going forward is going to be massively honest. But like I said, not to the degree that it hurts anyone, because I never want to do that. And if I thought, anyone who's listening, anything that I think is contentious or anything, I would always check with someone first how they felt about me talking about it. So anyway, right, let's cut to... So it got to a point, right, where we were going down to the studio. Let's not talk about music for a bit. We were going down to the studio, and they'd be like, I don't know, Phil will probably know better than me, mostly because they were all his mates. But, I mean, they'd be like, what, 20 people down there or something? They'd be us. And it'd be like, well, 10 or 15, sometimes more, maybe a little bit less, I don't know. But there'd be a lot of people there with us, do you know what I mean? It turned into like, for a long time, I say a long time, how long, God knows. For a while, it felt like it was just, do you know what I mean? Just a constant party. But that's what being around us at that time was. It was a constant party. Do you know what I mean? Today, God, it was just brilliant. So it got so childish, did this. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's all right. So we'll go back to all these people. So we'd be in our practice room, which, I mean, it wasn't massive. It was plenty big enough for a kit, you know, Stu's amp and that, me and Rob. So everyone had the four corners and Rob could go nuts. They were big enough. But, you know, we'd be sort of writing or practicing and there'd just be people sat everywhere, you know, all sort of parsley. Do you know what I mean? This parsley thing is making me laugh. But you know what I'm saying, it's better than the other way. But so that was a lot of fun. And again, I didn't really, because at this point, again, you have to remember, I've never been a social creature, me. So it's not like I had a huge group of friends. And as I say, at this point, I was just in a wormhole. So I'd be, you know, mildly intoxicated or whatever, stood there playing with all these people sat around, and everyone's playing, we're all playing, and everyone's getting into it, and it was just ace. It was, because I tell you what, as whoever and whatever, what it did was it gave you immediate feedback. Do you know what I mean? Because I love body language, me, and I read it subconsciously in my peripheral vision. Yeah, I don't have to be looking at someone to study the body language. Do you know what I mean? Not at all. I could feel it. So I found it really interesting sitting with this crowd on the floor around his feet. You know, it's like, I can't reach me wine pedal for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? Because someone's beer's in way. That's literally what it was like. But I could, you know, Phil would be doing his thing, sort of, on all his mates would be like, wow, do you know what I mean? And whatever, and organised, obviously. I can't talk about these times without talking about organised, can I, Jenny? Do you know what I mean? She'd be there. Jenny were there a lot, really. Jenny were there a lot, you know, with, like I say, with this other crowd, and it was just like a family sort of vibe. Do you know what I mean? And I keep saying that, say it again. I didn't really know these other people very well, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. It was fun to. Well, it was like what do you call it? A control group. It was like, all right, you lot are the control group. You sit in front of us and we're going to churn stuff out and I'm going to judge your body language, do you know what I mean? And it's so easy to tell when someone's enjoying something and when someone's like, well, this bit could end, could it, really? Do you know what I mean? It just, people give off those sorts of things. So that was interesting and a fun way to write and just come up with ideas. This needs to have lots of different bits to it, this. Alright, I'll briefly talk about that then, because what we used to do when we had our own studio is we had a DAT recorder and we'd set up like just one mic that would just pick up everything, do you know what I mean? And we would just play. And I can't remember how long a DAT was, but when it had run out, if we knew or I knew or whatever that not really that exciting happened, you just record over it. And if something exciting happened, you press marker on the DAT machine. And then you've got a marker, so you know, right, that bit were there. And so and that's certainly what I used to do as well, is in these moments where we'd be stood around playing some stuff, I'd be waiting for that magic to leap out at me, which is what I was always waiting for, and sometimes it took a long time, sometimes it didn't take any time at all, and sometimes it was unanimous. You know, everyone's, because we'll be playing somewhere and it'll be grooving and Rob will be doing something, and then suddenly Rob will do something. And you're just like, bang, there it is. Right, now we've got it. Like, and he might start doing something else, and if that bit's not as good, you're like, right, well, stop. Everyone stop. Right, rewrite that player and play it back. And then you're like, right, okay, Rob, so we all know that 5 seconds of vocal there, that's the song. You know what I mean? We don't need anything else. That is the song, that 5 seconds of vocal there. It could even be half a second of vocal, it doesn't matter. And that's specifically how my mind works. I pull things like that out of the ground like worms when they stick their heads up. And that's the key, is being able to do that. You can play for 60 years. If no one is stood there with the confidence to stop everyone and go, right, stop in about, that's brilliant. We don't need to play anything else for the rest of the day. That, we've just found something there. It's, it's fallen into his lap. Let's not let it get away, because I tell you what, that became a massive fear for me, a massive fear. And that's why we got the DAC player, for one reason, but it became a massive fear to me that if you didn't grab these worms when they stuck their head out of the ground, it's not going to be the same worm that comes back up the next time. And often, it doesn't matter how many times you play it, and how many times people stand there going, no, that is what I was playing. You're like, it won't. Oh, God, it makes my heart beat fast thinking about it now, because it's history flying out of the window, or it's history going back into the ground. You're like, I'm not having that. Do you know what I mean? You can't sleep at night with those sorts of things. You have to get them worms and pull them out of the ground and make it, well, I suppose the analogy collapses at that point, but, make it bigger, do you know what I mean? Make it better, turn it into more than the sum of its parts, which is what I felt we did. And a lot of the time, again, I did drive these things and I'm like, that's it. And that's when because everyone needs that, everyone. And it's not just, it's not that they need telling that it's good, it's they need reassuring. I need that. I need that more than anyone, anyway. So that's what I always was desperate to try and do, would be like, look, I appreciate what that is. And look, and that's another thing as well, because I know Rob watches these videos, and I'm not getting into it too much, but I like everyone knows, I appreciate his voice and what he does, and I spoke about something specific on Twitter about Open Your Mind when I heard him record that vocal, and that was a big moment for me. Not my point, but that was a big moment for me, and I'm not having that taken away from me by you, Rob, do you know what I mean? By saying, oh, come on, do you know what I mean? Because you are humble. You are. And, I respect that. But at the same time, I like to think, I know what I see, do you know what I mean? Can't remember what that point linked to. It did link to something. It did link to something. I don't know. I think it was linked to the fact that that's a special memory for me. As are all my memories of the people in this band. And anyway, let's move away from that. That might have sounded all a bit weird. I didn't mean it to. Let's move away from that. So it's not weird. I just, that was a big moment for me, that. And I understand that Rob wanted to play it down a little bit, but I won't let it be, because it's questioning my recollection of history is what it is, which I don't let anyone do it. But I remember. So I don't need anyone telling me. I remember. So yeah, practicing in the practice room. It was just brilliant, parsley, because again, so. And this is quite long, this, I suppose. Can't see now, we're 23. But yeah, so all these people that have come down to the studio and stuff, not just them, just us four. Right, let's see if I can root this into a sentence, not just fragments of sentence. Fragments of sentences, even. So we got to a point where we'd go down there, and we just have such a laugh, like I say, and it got so childish, do you know what I mean? We started playing hide and seek, and then we started playing hide and seek in the dark, do you know what I mean? 18 or however old we were. But it was just hilarious, because that place was huge, it was underground, there was no natural light. All there was plenty of electronic equipment, DAC players or CD players or preamps or little transformers, all which obviously have standby lights or some sort of power indication light. Now in pitch blackness, they give off quite a spread. So, God, I tell you what, it was scary with that, because that place was big and it was dark and you could hide anywhere. And it got to a point where it was quite nerve-wracking. I remember a few people having to bail out on that. They couldn't handle it. They suddenly would just walk back into reception, just go, no, I'm out, mate. No, I'm sitting down. I'm not playing. No, it's too scary. Because it was quite freaky. And of course, you've got all this equipment. You go in live room and you're nearly tripping over drum kits and that, and listening to people falling over stuff as they were going to try and hide somewhere. Oh God. And then you're like, oh, I can't find them, or they better not be in back bit, because it was really dark in back bit. Because obviously there was no in there to have a little power light, so it was dark. So yeah, it got pretty scary, did that. And that got pretty scary. What else funny did we do like that? Well, too much to talk about, really. There's too much to talk about. That's the beauty of it, and that's why there'll be a lot of these videos. Too many funny memories that are not just rooted in whatever happened with the band, do you know what I mean? That were just rooted in being friends, I guess. Because even though, like I say, we did have differences, as I explained when I said it, who doesn't? What group of people doesn't have differences? And that's what led me on to that, talking about other bands, wasn't it? What group of people don't have differences? So, but, we were, you say friends, I suppose it was more than that, really. It became like brothers. And again, families fall out, brothers fall out, do you know what I mean? Or have differences of opinions. And that was the beauty. We were just always linked together by this central thing, which was the music. That, that binded us together, it bonded us together. And I suppose the other point I wanted to make about the fact that we spent so much time playing hide and seek, and I'm going to have to speak to other lads, to be honest, because there's all sorts of really funny things we did there. The hide and seek one sticks out for me, because it was really funny. Again, like I said, I take things serious, so it got really intense. Oh God. But yeah, we were so, at that point in time, we were so rich creatively that, again, if we were like, all right, well, Tim's coming up on Friday, it's Monday, so we can only play hide and seek until about 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, right? Yeah, because he's coming at about 2 on Friday, so that gives us 3 till, 6, to come up with like loads of songs, and then the morning when we get there, before he arrives, we'll do another 3 or 6. But I laugh. But it was that easy. There was a long time where it was just that easy to create something. Rob was just, everything he fired out was like, oh God. Do you know what I mean? Someone pick my jaw off the floor, please. And that just made me want to kick out this stuff as well, like every riff. I remember, and it wasn't just at the beginning, right the way through, because I were always head down, kind of, looking at the neck, what am I doing here, where am I going? And I'd always have Rob in my ear, do you know what I mean? Or coming over back of me, sort of saying, that's, that brilliant is that, or whatever, do you know what I mean? And there'd be a lot of eye contact with me and Rob, me and Phil, Stu and Phil, do you know what I mean? Stu and Phil's link is like, it's really, like it's symbiotic, isn't it? I suppose it is with all of us, but especially the rhythm section, Phil and Stu. I'm fascinated by their body language to each other on stage, because I think Phil said on Twitter something about my playing or something, because like I said, well, I've never really watched you play, and you think, oh well, of course, really. And it's same with me when I watch live performances back and the stuff that Rob's doing. I don't see a lot of it. Obviously, I do see things in my peripheral, and when he's sort of, dancing around me, or like times where he just suddenly decide it might be a good idea to, like, I don't know, kneel down behind me or something. So I'm playing and he's decided to kneel down behind me. I step backwards. What's going to happen? I'm going to fall over. I used to find him all over the place on stage, Rob, sort of, coming from different directions, but. Again, I just used to love that because I always found that quite difficult. And that's where Rob was just, well, not just that, but that's why Rob is so amazing and was so amazing in the music, was that, I don't know about Stu. It doesn't matter for Phil because he's behind a kit. It doesn't matter so much for him. Well, that's certainly how I see it anyway, but me and Stu sort of out front, You know, it's very exposing that, and I'm aware I'm really tall, and especially at that time, I was quite gangly as well. Not so much now, but at that time I was quite gangly, so I was very self-conscious about how I was standing and how I looked, and all sorts of other stuff. Which you're probably all thinking, well, that's weird. You do that? I don't believe that. Oh, God, you've got to believe it because it's the truth. It's really self-conscious on stage, and Rob, you know, destroyed all that problem. You know what I mean? That all that problem I felt of self-confidence, he shattered it, absolutely shattered it, because he was just so enigmatic. Do you know what I mean? At what he was doing, I just thought, no one's looking at me. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's watching that, so it's like, it's brilliant because then I can concentrate more without thinking, oh God, everyone's watching me, because I never really like that. And that's why if you see me indoors in like Japan, in signing sessions and stuff, I've always got shades on because it makes me, well, I don't care how ridiculous it seems, it makes me, you know, well, your eyes are your main point of contact, aren't they? That's where people are going to read most of your emotions or whatever. So I like to keep them covered when there's a lot of people sort of really anxiously looking at you, waiting for you to say something. It's like, oh God. So even like being on stage, it's kind of the same thing. So Rob was effectively my shades. Well, on stage, in life, really. Do you know what I mean? Rob made me look cool, I guess, in a lot of ways. Because, well, like I say, just for me and Stu to be up there, it allowed us to slowly, I won't say build up, well, yeah, but slowly build up our confidence to the point where we could be on stage, and it wasn't an issue. You know, after a while, it didn't become an issue. You know, we were so confident as a band that I was so confident in our abilities that a lot of my huge crushing anxieties about live performances and things going wrong and strings breaking and people falling off the stage and disappearing into a black hole, being abducted by aliens, do you know what I mean? I could go on for days about the fears and stuff like that. But anyway, how good we were at that point, especially early on, how good we were. You know, it's just absolute invincibility. And it's so much better to share that with 3 other people, or, you know, 5, 6. I couldn't begin to think about how many people were actually really involved to the extent that I could call it a family, but it's a lot more than 6, innit? I mean, us 4 and Tim and Tony and Rob Partridge, and you keep going. They're all, you know, the radio people, the radio pluggers and things, you know, anyone, everyone. You know, lots of people shared this journey with us. How long is this? Because I've probably gone too far. 33 minutes. Did I have an ultimate point? My ultimate point was History 3, talking about getting our own practice room. Again, with these history ones, there's probably stuff I've left out from before that's contextually relevant that I'll bring forward when necessary. But yeah, this, I wanted to specifically talk about getting in the practice room, you know, a little bit touching on our dynamics and how that affected us in the practice room and hide and seek. Oh yeah, Pro Evo. That's what we used to love a lot. PlayStation, set up in reception, you know, serious games of Pro Evo. Because Stu's got no interest in football, none whatsoever. And I have to say, I didn't actually, until I really got into Pro Evo. Well, I did, but not to the extent that I am now. Playing Pro Evo, or what was it called back then anyway, but Rob and Phil loved it, and they introduced it to me and Stu, and it was through playing that game that I actually built an appreciation of football. Honestly, I mean, I won't get too much into that, but I didn't really have any idea how it worked before that. I had no interest, I was too busy playing guitar, you know what I mean? But yeah, that taught me about all sorts of stuff, and I began to appreciate it as, you know, as a dance. Do you know what I mean? All the sort of the finer arts of football you can lay bare when you force yourself to really try and be good enough that you're made and not embarrassed that you keep losing with it. Do you know what I mean? Because we had different partnerships, Rob and Phil versus me and Stu. I think me and Stu like to slide in a lot. What button's that? Is that circle? Sliding? I don't know, this has gone random now. But yeah, it was to talk about building our bond, I'd say, in our first spiritual home as a music Do you know what I mean? I didn't talk about Will Jackson as much as I'd like to, but I don't know. Got decades, haven't we? Decades. Well, yeah, right. So I think I'll leave that there now, because as much as anything, it'll take ages to upload and people will look at it and go, 35 minutes, I ain't watching that. But hopefully you're still finding it interesting, and I'll obviously be doing more of the other series and that as and when. Obviously I'll be going out, I think 1 or probably 2 days a week with Dave doing stuff, but at the same time I'm still trying to sort this out. I'm waiting for, you know, manufacturing processes and all sorts of stuff. A lot of things need to happen first before the other ducks can fall into row. So it's all a bit all over the place for me at the moment, but that's alright. That's alright. Once I get this place sorted, I can see a lot clearer where I'm going really, and what my next move is. I'll be able to see a lot more clearer what my next move is. In life, in a wider sense. Not like talking like that. So anyway, right, I'll leave that there then. That's been long enough. Again, I know I say it a lot, but come on, I'm just really appreciative of everyone's interactions. I'm not very good at words like that. People giving up their time to listen to me, I suppose. Especially someone who's going to sit down and listen to 35 minutes of me. That really means a lot to me, regardless of what I'm talking about. I don't know, it's nice, isn't it? And I like making these videos when I feel that people are watching and I feel that people are getting something from it. I do worry about boring people or shoving myself in people's face too much, because I'm not trying to shove myself in people's face. I like this, I enjoy this. I talk about hyperfocus. This has kind of become my hyperfocus. It's escapism. Do you know what I mean? Like my phone's on me all the time. Apart from when I'm gardening, I don't check it then. But otherwise, that's why I like and reply to stuff, because I'm watching for it. It's not like I'm not a high flying career guy that's really busy and got loads of stuff to do. Do you know what I mean? I'm not that guy, so I've got it's really good of him to give up his time to talk to us. I've already said enough about that, do you know what I mean? Like, you can have it. You can have it. It's fine. Anyway, that'll do. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, see you later.